Mic check, 1, 2, sexy husband. I love
I
you.
love you,
My little baby.
little baby.
Hey, hey, hey. Welcome. Happy day. Whatever day of the week
Happy
it
day.
is. Whatever
Oh,
day
happy day!
of the week it is that you're watching this. Welcome. We're stuck in our house, are you? We're so...
Is that why we're so socially awkward right now?
I'm
'Cause we
not
don't talk to
socially...
people?
I, my friend, am not socially awkward.
Is this you not being socially awkward?
This is me being an introvert, trying to talk.
Some of you guys are probably talking to your pets a lot more than usual, like your dog or your cat.
We
You're like
always
having
talk
real
to our
full
dog.
conversations.
That's like normal
It's true.
for us. We wanted to pop on here and tell you about how we talk about our, how we have full conversations with our dog. And she literally walked away as I said that just now.
She's like, I've got better things to do, Mom
But we
and
do
Dad.
that all the time. No, not really. We actually have had a lot of stuff on our heart about what is happening in the world. There's so much stuff happening.
We actually wanted to gather some thoughts to help you and bring some peace in the storm that we think will be really helpful for you guys.
One of the things that might not be a problem for all of you, but for a lot of us, is the financial hit. Whether you're in the category where you lost a job, whether you are on hold and you're not able to work, regardless of your situation, maybe you have another 2 months until you know you can work and you don't know how you're gonna make it through. The good thing about what's happening is everyone is getting hit and you're not alone. Sometimes when we're in pain, something that stacks and weights pain on top of what we're already going through is that feeling of isolation. Like, I'm the only one who's going through this, no one else gets it. And the thing that is comforting about this is that we are all going through hardship together, but there are solutions to help you emotionally navigate through this journey financially.
So, what we don't want to sound like we're saying is that you should just forget all of the feelings that and fear that come with the reality of what's happening.
That's actually exactly what I was trying to communicate.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
So, that's actually what I was trying to say.
That was exactly, but I couldn't find the words. Thank you.
Well, you know, I feel like there's a lot of really great people out there that are talking about connecting with faith instead of fear right now, but the reality is that there's going to be things that are triggered in you and in people that cause us to lean on fear in moments, and the last thing that we want to do is partner with shame when that comes up. We wanted to help with that first and speak into some of the reality of what's going on right now and how to give yourself compassion before moving into what's most healthy for you and for the people around you. It's a story that's completely unrelated to what's currently happening with the climate and the fear around coronavirus. It's a story that we have a lot of anchor in the way that we function in our programs, the way that we help people, and that's the story of the woman caught in adultery. And what I love about that story and why it matters so much in my life is because the way that Jesus operates, the way that God operates, like Jesus came revealing the Father, right? Like Jesus actually is perfect theology. And if you don't see it in Jesus, it's actually not in God at all. So many people make conclusions about who God is and how they see Him based on all these things that are pulled out of context in Scripture, but Jesus pulls perfect context into revealing the Father. There are a lot of humans that were in the Old Testament that came revealing God's voice, that came revealing God's power, that have come revealing different parts of God's nature and different sides of His face, but nobody has ever come in the history of the Bible anywhere revealing the Father except for Jesus. Jesus actually came to reveal the Father to His kids. And so when you see the life of Jesus, that's actually the nature of the Father. And in John chapter 11, 12, and 13, I think there was a moment where Philip was saying, if you just show us the Father, then we'll know. And Jesus said, how long have you been with me, Philip? Like, when you see me, you see the Father. And so Jesus, He did this interesting thing when the woman was caught in adultery and thrown into the town square by the religious people of the time. They had thrown her in front of Jesus, and said
And
the law.
Well, she literally got caught in the act of adultery.
She was naked, literally in it.
She was naked, and they threw her out in front of people naked.
And so she is in the most shame that she's experienced. She's exposed in her darkness. Like literally the law said she was to be stoned and killed for doing that in that town. And so the religious leaders holding stones were saying, the law says to kill this woman, what do you say? You know, first off, how did they know that she was there? Like, how did they know where to go to find her? I wonder if like she was actually caught with one of the Pharisees or with a religious person, you know, while she was caught in the act of adultery. I wonder if they had experiences with her. I just wonder. But somehow they knew. They brought her out, threw her in front of Jesus. She's naked in the town square. They're holding stones. They're saying, law says to kill her. What do you say? He starts writing. Everybody knows the story, right? And
he literally grabs a stick and he draws a line in the sand, and they're all kind of like, what is this man doing?
Yeah, he's drawing in the sand, and then he gets up and he says, he who has no sin cast the first stone. And from the oldest to the youngest, the Pharisees start laying down their stones and walking away.
Meaning the wisest.
Yeah, the wisest to the youngest. And then he looks at the woman and he says, where are all of your accusers? And she says, they're gone. And then he says, neither do I accuse you. Go and sin no more. I think that is so powerful. And if you actually get into the emotions of it, what that woman was feeling, and like if you can imagine you being at your worst, and imagine Jesus shredding accusation off of you, like that's his heart before he ever gives correction. And I think there's a lot of religious people with good hearts, but leaders that are saying like, hey, don't partner with fear, partner with faith. And we sometimes feel like there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me if I'm just going towards fear. But the thing is, it's like we actually learn that in our past as a survival mechanism to be friends with fear. If I can be scared enough of these outcomes, then it'll protect me from those outcomes happening.
Or it'll motivate me to do something differently. It'll motivate me to be better if I partner with it.
And so if we just go into reason, we can't reason ourselves out of it. We can't just like, okay, I'm going to change my thought and just believe the right thing. I'm just going to believe in God, believe in his good nature. I'm just going to focus on the cross and by concept, just get out of fear. It's like, no, Jesus actually shreds accusation over us first. He actually removes any conclusions or judgments over us first. He actually wants to bring love and compassion and qualify us to be loved by his love in a moment where we actually connect with his love first before he ever gives us another healthy alternative. And that was his heart in that moment, is like, I actually want to, like his heart was to shred the thing that had drawn a conclusion over her life. And after shredding accusation off of that woman caught in adultery, shredding the accusation of the religious leaders, shredding the accusation of the people in that square, shredding the accusation of God over her, he then empowered her in a moment where it's like, I love you so much now, and in this place of me loving you, here's a healthy alternative. So I want you guys to actually understand that God isn't fed up with you. He's not like how dare you? He's actually like, he understands where your fear is coming from, why it's there. And the first thing that he wants is for you to connect with love first before you actually grab onto a healthy alternative.
And even in the Bible, whenever Jesus was with the disciples and he'd say like, do you not have any faith and you've been with me this long? Or like, hey, you have little faith, this. And he'd bring a correction, but he's saying from a place of friendship, from a place of relationship, from a place where he's like, hey, we've been building trust. Do you not trust me here? Like, do you not believe in me here? But the cool thing about that is it's in the context of relationship. So if we have history with God, intimate history with God, where we're having conversations with him and dialogues with him, it's a spot where he calls us out. But I think sometimes we hear verses like that and we stack on shame to the fear or the pain or whatever it is that we're already processing through. But God is an invitational God. What he's saying is, I want to build trust with you. So if you don't have faith in this time, Jesus isn't sitting over your shoulder being like, you have little faith, do you not trust me? It's actually an invitation to relationship. He's saying, let's build trust. He's not expecting us to just trust him. He's a relational God, and we believe that he wants intimacy with us, and he doesn't expect us to just grab hold of something and to choose it. I think a lot of us are actually using Band-Aids on top of wounds. We're like, I'm just going to get rid of the fear, and I'm going to change my mindset, and I'm going to change my belief system, and I'm just going to choose faith. but yet fear is rearing up over and over and over again, and it's rooted in something. So we're not telling you to stay in your fear either, but what we're saying is don't shove it down. There's a place for you to be validated in this and be met with love and compassion, and there's an invitation for you to build trust with God in this time, in this season.
The disciples also, can you imagine watching a man that enters into your life, like the first moment you ever meet him, he performs a miracle and you have more fish than you've ever experienced just by throwing your nets on the other side of a boat. You know, like he actually used a foolish thing to confound the wise. Like it says, God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. Like he actually took people, their craft was fishing. And then he was like, why don't you throw it on the other side? They're like, we've been doing this all day, bro. Like, buddy, like we've been doing this all day. It's not going to do anything. This side or that side doesn't matter. Then they throw it on the other side. And guess what? Enough fish to pull the boat down. They literally had to let go of some of the fish. I mean, imagine watching somebody perform miracle after miracle, raising a person from the dead, and then, you know, raising this child from the dead, casting out demons, turning 2 fish and 5 loaves into feeding 5,000 people. That's just the men. That means that there were probably more likely 12,000 people there, including women and children. So imagine taking one lunch and feeding 12,000 people, and then having those same people go, God, we're so scared, there's a storm happening, like help us. And he's like, dude, like, like imagine that. If you haven't experienced God's goodness at different levels like that, then why are you shaming yourself for a different standard that was placed on the disciples? We read stories, but for most of the Western church, it reaches here in concept. And we hear and learn concepts, but we haven't known and experienced things in our heart in a revelation experience like the disciples have. They were called to a different standard. If you had seen 5 people get healed of tumors, then are you going to be able to look at somebody that has a tumor the same way and pray for them the same way that you used to before that? No. You're going to be carrying that faith into that moment and going like, I actually have a standard of things that I've experienced with God and a faith that I'm called to in this moment. But there's something that you called to. All we're called to is to be faithful in the little. So all that you're actually called to is to be faithful with where you're at. Yeah. And there's a verse in Timothy that says, even if we're faithless, he's faithful. Why are we talking about all this different stuff around miracles and all these different things? Because like we said in the beginning, there's an invitation to shame yourself about where you're at with God and what you believe for your life and how you're being influenced by the things around you, coronavirus, the fear around it, the fear around finances. We want to actually share some stories with you so that you can actually utilize some of our faith and you guys can build your own faith as well, but also know that perfect love casts out fear. Faith is not the antidote to fear. Perfect love is the antidote to fear. Perfect love is a person. When the storm was raging over the disciples, even though he called them out because they had a different standard of faith that they were called to, he still silenced the storm. But what I think is so crazy that Jesus was literally sleeping, like Prince of Peace was sleeping on a boat, that in his leadership, in the way that he's a leader, he literally had to be shaken out of his state of peace to silence the storm. And so there's an invitation for us to actually be in partnership with Prince of Peace in this time, but it doesn't come through fixing our faith, it comes through abiding in his love.
So, I want to give you some practicals. Exactly. You know me.
I do know you.
Some practicals. So, right now, regardless of where you're at financially, it's scary. Whether you have a fat savings account and you have something to lean on, there's still the fear of the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen with the economy. Your boss might have said this one thing, or maybe you were let go. You don't know what the future holds. So regardless, the thing is no matter how much money you have, it still doesn't provide certainty or security. Let me just say this again. No matter how much money you have in a savings account or coming in, it still doesn't provide safety or security. Anything could happen. It's honestly, what's the right word for it? It's like an illusion. It's an illusion to think. I remember I grew up with a poverty mentality. So I remember thinking when I can make enough money, it's going to make my fear and my anxiety towards finances go away if I have enough. And actually, Receiving more money just exposed my fear and my poverty mentality that much more. It actually just puts a magnifier to it and zooms in, and you're like, oh my God, I still have all of these fears, all of this doubt, all of this anxiety, and what I thought was going to make all of that go away actually just enhanced it. So regardless of where you're at right now, I want you to settle into the fact that you don't know what's going to be happening in the future. And neither do we. There's no certainty. And the gift of that is that for most of us, we've built our lives around relying on ourselves to show up. We've relied on ourselves. We're self-sufficient. We're independent. We've learned work ethic. And these are all really good, powerful, healthy qualities. But what happens when we're in a situation like this is we get stripped of those things because now relying on ourselves and our own ability isn't enough. Because there are things that are out of control in our circumstances. And what I've loved about seasons of my life that I've been through, and let me tell you, I have been through so many seasons where I have had nothing. Nothing, no money, no job, no way to provide for myself, no way to even get a job in different seasons. Times when God has asked me to give all of my money away, times when God has asked me not to work at all, and I have gone on a total trust journey with Him. And so the really awesome thing about this season of the unknown is that we get to make this an opportunity, and we can actually make this a gift. This gets to be a time where we learn to build reliance on God, where we trust God to be our provider. He's a good dad. There's a verse, you might know what it is. He's like my index for the Bible. I'm like, hey, this is in the Bible, but I don't know where. But it says, I feed the birds.
I fed the birds.
I feed the birds of the air, and I clothe the lilies of the field. How much more will I provide for you? Something like that.
Don't know the verse.
Okay, you guys.
I know the verse. I don't know. Like,
some of you are Bible
reference.
thumpers.
Yeah.
So, like, if God's so faithful to feed the birds and all of the animals and clothe the lilies of the field, how much more does He want to take care of you? He made you in His image and in His likeness. You're actually His son, you're His daughter. And He wants to take care of you. And there's an invitation, whether you've experienced it or not at all, there's an invitation to have intimacy with God and to step into being fathered by Him. To step into being a little boy or a little girl who's taken care of by a dad. And this gets to be opportunity for you to watch God show up for you. But what control does, and the only time we ever step into control or manipulation is because of fear.
We're scared. Yeah.
Control is rooted in fear. Manipulation is also rooted in fear. And out of fear, we want to hold on to and grip and find certainty in our circumstances. And it actually doesn't allow much room for God to come in and show up. It's not until we surrender and let go and actually open our hands and our hearts for God to bring things in that we can experience it. I remember listening to fun sermons like Todd White and Bill Johnson and Dan Mohler and these people that were just seeing radical miracles and healings from God and financial provision. And they'd share stories about giving large amounts of finances away, and then all of this money would show up in their lap. And I'd be like, oh, I just want God to tell me to give money away, or I just want God to tell me to do this so that if He tells me, then I know it's Him, and then I know He's going to provide for me.
It always just sounded hokey to me. I was just like, you give money away and God gives you money. I'm like, sure. I'm like, yeah, because you're on a pulpit and people invest into your ministry, that's how you survive. Like, they take a love offering every time you speak. You're like, how did it show up randomly? It's like, oh, you took a love offering and it probably showed up. I was like so skeptical of everything.
Let me say, like, I was raised in a Spirit-filled church. My dad was a pastor, so I was raised seeing miracles in front of my eyes all of the time. I was raised seeing crazy financial things happen, but I didn't see it personally. But I had a lot of faith, and I've always believed in God because I've watched crazy, indescribable things happen. And so I remember just being like, man, that's amazing, and like, I want to be sensitive to God like that, and I want to trust Him. And I didn't even know I had poverty mentality back then, but I felt like I had to hold on to every single thing that I had. I always had a stash fund of money, no matter what, that no one knew about, because it was like my lifeline in case anything happened.
In the cushion of your couch and under your bed.
I don't even remember what I did. I would find money years later and I'd be like, where'd this come from? Oh, that was me. And so I remember praying, like, God, I want to see you show up like that. And I finally got to this point where I don't know if it was God talking to me or I just realized, like, oh, but I've actually never put myself in opportunities to just trust that it was God speaking to me. What I realized is there would be these little thoughts that came into my mind, like, why don't you do this for that person? Or like, you should give $100 tip to this person. And I just have these little tiny subtle thoughts. And I'd be like, no, that's just me. I'm not going to do that. Why would I tell myself to give away way more money than I wanted to give in that moment? And so I started kind of realizing, like, I think that this is God, because if it feels like love, kindness, peace, generosity, if it feels like these good things, I'm actually going to trust that that's a fruit of the Spirit. And so I started putting myself in these situations where I would just start giving. And at first it was scary. There were times that I didn't see money like pop back in my lap right away, but I would start giving more and more, and the freedom that I felt, because what I was doing,
it's worth it alone, right?
It was worth it alone, just feeling like my money didn't have power over me. And that's such a massive value that we have. Have as much money as you want, make as much money as you want, work hard, work smart, do your thing. Just don't let your money have power over you. Don't let your fear of lack have power over you. Don't let your fear of the unknown have power over you. The amazing thing about generosity and giving, and I'm honestly not preaching to you about tithing or giving. It has nothing to do with this.
And we're not going to have a sales presentation at the end of this.
Not at all. But the amazing thing about generosity is it's actually you lifting your money and your finances up to God and saying, God, this is yours, not mine. God, I trust you to do whatever you want with this, and I'm going to trust that no matter what happens with my money, that you're going to come in and provide for me and father me, even if I don't have enough. And so, story time. So I started doing this a lot. There was a week where I gave thousands, and I didn't have thousands and thousands of dollars. I was a dental assistant, and I had a little bit of a savings account, and I was moving and doing some ministry school, and I wasn't going to be working for the next year because I felt like God asked me not to. And so I had just enough money to move, buy furniture, and maybe live off of it for a month. And I'm sitting at a restaurant, and I feel like God tells me to give my waitress a $500 tip. And so I had a $20 salad that I split with a friend, because that's how I do, because I like saving money. And then I tipped her $500 on my $20 bill.
Oh my gosh.
And I just left and I was like, oh, what did I just do? And I think I maybe had another $1,000. And it must have been like a week later. Mind you, like I'm living on carrots and chicken. It's like, and Greek yogurt. It's like all I would buy. I didn't have any money. Even if I had money in my account, I was so frugal. And I got to the point where I had like $836 in my account, 830 something. And I felt like God asked me to give away $800 to sow into someone's ministry. And I'm like, what the freaking heck? You want me to live off of $36 and you're also asking me not to work? What? And I had enough trust built at the time where it was actually just kind of thrilling. I just was really afraid, honestly, but I had watched God do all these little things and provide for me and show up and bless me, that I was at this place where I had trust built with him. But it came from stewarding the small things. It came from giving the $10 away that I didn't want to give. It came from buying the $7 lunch for someone else that I didn't want to give. And now there were bigger things that I was being asked to do. And so I made a virtual payment, and I sent away my $800, and I had $36 left in my account. It was like 3 days later. I literally had nothing. I was running out of groceries, and out of nowhere I get handed this stack of $500. It was the fattest stack because there were 1s and 5s and 10s, this fat stack of cash. And this group of people who didn't know my financial situation, they didn't know that I had just given that money away, no one did, decided to take up an offering for me. And I'm just like, God, you are so faithful. What the heck?
Who was this group of people?
It was at my ministry school that I was going to.
Got it.
Have you not heard this story before?
I just forgot that detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they were pretty much like my church group and at this school that I was going to. And I take the money, I deposit it into the bank, and I'm like, I'm going to Walmart. I'm going to buy a bunch of cheap
I'm going
groceries.
to Walmart. I'm going to Walmart.
So I'm grocery shopping. I pull up my phone just to make sure my money was in my bank account. And I had $1,300 in my bank account. And I was like, wait, what? Did I think I was broke this whole time? Like, what the heck just happened? And I go and I start looking through things. The $800 that I donated got refunded back to me, on top of the $500 that group of people blessed me with. And I started crying. I'm in Walmart and I'm literally crying, but I'm also like beaming inside. And I felt like God was saying, I was just asking you to be faithful. It wasn't to take from you, it's actually because I wanted to bless you more. I wanted to see that I could actually trust you with what I was asking of you. And it showed me so much about the nature and the kindness of God. He is never asking for our money or asking for tithes or asking for offerings or asking for you to be generous because he needs your money. He doesn't need your money. If you say no to blessing that person, someone else is going to say yes. God will just find someone else. The gift of it is that whenever you decide to give, you actually free yourself from the thing that you've been gripping onto. You actually put yourself in a position to build trust that you have a dad that wants to show up for you, that you have a dad that wants to provide for you and take care of you. Because the truth is he wants to give you abundantly more than you could ever fathom. And what I love about those times when I just was like, all right, just take it all, is it set me up for so much success in my future where now my money doesn't have power over me. Whether we have absolutely nothing or whether we have a crazy abundance, it actually doesn't change and affect my inner world anymore. I never feel like I have to pinch pennies. I'm not afraid to spend. I'm not afraid to save. Savings doesn't have power over me, whether we have it or whether it doesn't. I actually have just been in this place where I'm like, cool, God, let's go. What do you want to do? You're asking me to give some more? Let's do it. You want to bless me like crazy? This is amazing. Thank you so much. But I know that it's my dad providing for me. I know that my dad is showing up for me. And even if I'm in abundance and even if I'm in lack, I have opportunity in all of it to build trust that I have a loving father who wants to take care of me. And so that's what I really want for you guys today is regardless of your financial situation, and you can listen to what you feel like God's asking you to do in this. That's for you. I'm not going to tell you anything to do. I'm not giving you any homework to give or to tithe. But what I really want for you is for you to take your hands like this, gripping on to what you have and your certainty over your circumstances and your finances, to just saying, okay, God, I just want to be open because I want to start building trust that you're a loving dad that wants to take care of me. I want to build trust that I'm not having to do this alone. Because there's a lie that comes in these times. It's a lie that says you're alone, you're stuck, you're never going to get out of this, no one's here to take care of you. Regardless of what the lie and accusation is, or that voice of criticism that's coming in right now that's saying to you, there's opportunity for love to come in and be present in this time. There's actually opportunity for you to have an unshakable peace in this time, that regardless of what happens in the economy or your job or your family situation, that God is going to take care of you because he's a loving dad who just genuinely wants to father you and love you and take care of you well.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add to that is, like, I think it's so interesting when you read about the parable of the talents, is that you have these people that were entrusted with money, and then because of the way that they stewarded that, they were entrusted with cities. Right, and then there's another version of the parable that's in a different gospel where they were entrusted with money and they were given even way more than they were trusted with afterwards. It's like God actually wants to prepare your heart to be trustworthy with increase.
And if you want to read the story, read the parable of the talents, just
Yeah.
to get more details.
Yeah, so read the parable of the talents. You guys can look that up in your Bible if you want to. But basically, the way that we steward money is the way that God wants to trust us with influence. Like, I can tell you, if we didn't navigate this stuff individually, then having 9 employees, having more than 500 clients, and then thousands of other people that are doing courses and stuff, it would kill us and break us having that pressure.
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, when you are actually entrusted with a lot and you grow in influence, you grow with the things that you are called to steward. Like, even when you go from single to married, like for you married people, you know what it's like to go from only having you to take care of to now having another person to take care of, you know, as men and as women. Same thing, in a different capacity. You're taking care of someone in a lot of other capacities, and if you are the breadwinner, good for you. That's awesome. We need more sugar mamas out there. But then when you go to family, you're now having to take care of more people. Then when you have leadership and business and things that you're running, like imagine running a city. Someone goes, here's a city. You have all these people to take care of. Economy drops. Now what? It's on you. You're the leader. We're all looking to you. If you don't have a healthy relationship with money and resource, it's going to destroy you, because all of your identity is going to be wrapped up in that failure, instead of you having the ability to be creative and know how to trust God and give and be surrendered to God.
But it just starts in stewarding the small things, regardless of who you are, who you want to be, things you want to step into, dreams, hopes, and career paths that you're on. It really does start in stewarding the small things and being entrusted with more.
Exactly. And so with that being said, God looks at his kids, and his kids are asking him, like, I want this and I want this, and he's going like, I have this little kid that's asking me for a box of grenades. Like, as a good dad, am I going to give him this box of grenades that's going to destroy him or her? Like, no, I want to give them enough so that they can grow into handling this well.
And I want to say that in a different way too. A lot of us are asking for blessings, a future husband, finances, the career, whatever. And we actually believe that God's blessings would crush us if we're actually not prepared to handle them. So his blessing wouldn't actually be a blessing if he gave it to you right now. I think a true act of love would be withholding the blessing until you're actually ready to carry it. That's when it can actually be a gift to us. And that's when the blessing won't have power over you. So in other words, it's like you praying for a husband. That might be like God handing you a box of grenades right now, because it might be a marriage that you would freaking burn to the ground if you didn't have the emotional capacity to carry it.
You might put your husband in your God spot, and then all of a sudden when he fails you, your entire world is wrecked.
Yeah.
You're looking for your husband to solve your deep pain of loneliness, your husband to solve that deep pain of rejection, abandonment, all these different things, when in actuality God wants to fulfill the desire for whatever that thing is, significance, belonging, love, connection, comfort. He wants to fulfill that so that when your husband comes, it's a gift added to your life that you can see as something I don't desperately require to be okay. With all that being said, we just wanted to share that with you so that you guys can carry this moment well and lean into the invitation and not see it as just a problem.
Yeah. So I just want to bless all of you. I want to just kind of end with not a prayer, just a blessing. I just bless your hearts and your process with God. That every single day you'd ask God not to get rid of your fear, but to fill you with his perfect love, because perfect love casts out fear. So I just bless you with hunger for connection and intimacy with God, and that you would ask him to reveal his heart to you. That you'd ask him to reveal his love to you. That you'd ask God, teach me your love. Teach me your ways. Reveal your nature to me in this time, God. I want to see you as my provider. I want to build trust that you're my provider. So I just bless all of you that in this time, you would know that you can actually carry perfect peace and have relationship with perfect peace and love in this time. I bless all of you. We're praying for you. We're not diminishing the severity of what's going on right now. We just want to empower you and encourage you that you can actually be so centered and connected to God in this time. So we love you. Prayers and love and all the good things from us in Hawaii, and we will talk to you soon.